Our previous guest from episode 57, Sophia Soft as Knoll of Blue Lady, is performing a lot around Northern Colorado in the near future. Check out their schedule at Blue Lady on Instagram and Facebook. In the meantime, here's a clip of one of their songs, Emerald Eyes. Discover, share, connect. Welcome to the More You NoCo, our regional podcast bringing curiosity to your ears, one conversation at a time. I am your host, Ivan Wayne. I hope you're ready for this episode. Do you usually associate magic with someone doing tricks? Or do you ever ask a magician how they did a specific trick? I will admit, I thought this way up until my conversation with Paul featured on this episode. He explained to me why local newspapers once ran a story covering his magic and quoted our guest for saying that most magic sucks. A first on the show, 2 pieces of magic unfold during our conversation here on this episode. Sit back, embrace the wonder and mystery, and enjoy the show. Hello, the More You NoCo fans out there tuning into the podcast. I sit here in the back of Tower 56 Distillery here in downtown Greeley, and I sit here with Paul Knopfsinger, a local magician. So hello and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Please. And right before we turn the mic on, you were starting to get into your personal feelings and opinions about magic at large.
Yes.
Start there.
Well, I started magic as a kid, as most magicians do, and it's card tricks and coin tricks and that kind of stuff, and it's cute and it's entertaining. But as you get older, I think most magic is not entertaining for adults. It becomes a puzzle. I don't think it's magical. It becomes to figure it out. Like, why does a magician cut a woman in half? I wish I had a punchline for it, but I don't. But why? I mean, there's no magic to it. Do you ever believe the woman? Have you seen that routine before? Where the magician,
yeah.
Did you ever believe the woman was in danger?
No.
Right.
Well, maybe as a kid, but not.
Right, but as an adult,
I
I primarily perform for adults. The reason you don't believe she's in danger is because she doesn't believe she's in danger. She's half dressed and she dances her way with a big smile into the box. There's no drama there. There's no story there. And it becomes a puzzle. It becomes, how did that happen? Where's the trick? Where's the door? Where's with the false blade? Or how's it work? And I think most adults want magic in their lives. They just don't need magic introduced by some guy who's trying to trick them. Right. So it's magic like Star Wars is magic. You know Yoda's not real, but you just watch it. So what I try to do is I try to remind people of the first time they saw a tadpole. I mean, do you remember when you saw a tadpole? That was pretty awesome when you were a kid.
And realize that strange thing becomes a frog.
Right.
Or like you see a caterpillar. I mean, I still think metamorphosis is a fascinating process where this caterpillar becomes a butterfly.
Right.
And everyone is sitting there like, well, yeah, obviously, Ivan, but you shouldn't take those things for granted.
No, there's magic all over. There's magic everywhere. And unfortunately, we think of magic as pick a card. And that's not magic to me. Magic is stories, and magic is remembering. Most of my stories in my show are true. Most of my stories start from when I was a kid up until just when I had my daughter 13 years ago. My wife and I had our kid 13 years ago. That's when I got back into magic. Magic's real, and you just have to find it.
Right. And this feeling of wonder is one thing I kind of wanted to touch on because I teach intro psych at 2 universities up here in Northern Colorado, and one thing we touch on is how this sense of wonder is diminished as we become older.
Absolutely.
And I think you kind of touched on that.
Yep.
Like there are a lot of things that when you're a kid and you see them for the first time, your brain just fires off. This is a novel, brand new experience that is like earth shattering, and like mountains move in your mind. And then when we get older, it seems like we're less impressed. But I think the desire is still there. We
Right.
want to have wonder. And our breath is taken away when we see the mountains or we see the ocean again, and we're just reminded how small we are. And things like that.
I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of books in my library on magic. And there are still moments. Every time I watch a friend magician or somebody I know do a show, there are still moments that I sit back and I'm like, that is magic. There's sometimes I don't know how it's done. And I sit back and I'm just blown away. And I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, on the wonder thing, I have a 13-year-old daughter, as I mentioned, and she came home, God, it had been about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And she had to write an essay and give a presentation to her school about something that was different when we were her age as opposed to her age now. Like, what did we have it different when we were her age? And so we kind of sat around. She had to interview her parents on that. And we sat around, and that was my answer was, we had to wonder things. We had to wonder when the new Star Wars movie came out. We had to wonder when the new Kiss album came out. We had to wonder these things. And then it just miraculously showed up at the record shop one day, where now every answer you have is in your hand. Every question you have, the answer is in your hand. You just dial up on your phone. And we used to have to wonder those kind of things. And I think that maybe has a little bit to do with why I got back into magic and why I perform for adults, is to kind of remember those we don't know everything kind of things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, we crave this wonder and we seek out magic and we like seeing magicians in play, but we also, there's that itch in the back of our mind where we want to know why or how they did it. Why do you think that is? Why do we both simultaneously want to be wooed and then we want to solve it?
Well, it's interesting. I had this discussion with a buddy of mine just the other day. There's no other art that I can think of that is like magic. When you're a kid, if you express an interest in musicals, your parents don't take you out and sign you up to be a singer right away. They'll take you to other musicals. Or if you want to play football, you'll play football as a kid, but very, very rarely do you make it to be a pro. But the first time a young kid, expresses an interest in magic, what's the first thing the adult does? They buy him a magic kit. And so they just expose the secrets right away. So we're not, do you see what I'm saying? We're not allowed to appreciate magic from a very early age. We're not allowed to appreciate the art of magic because it's all of a sudden now it's become a puzzle because we think we know how it's done. Often I'll be doing tricks or routines or shows, and somebody afterwards will say, let me show you a trick that I know. And it's usually one of two tricks. It's a counting trick or a card trick. And they're great, but everybody knows, I just think we're not allowed to appreciate the wonder part of it anymore because we have to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm sitting here wondering if I was a young child and I loved magic and I wanted to turn around and do that magic, how would I get into that without simultaneously?
You don't.
Right.
You don't. And like I said, I did magic as a kid. I did it a lot. I did little kid birthday parties, and then I got to high school and I discovered beer and girls, and I put magic away.
Was your both magic?
Yeah, well, different kind of magic, and sometimes not nearly as fun as the magic I do now. But I packed it all away, and for 15, 20 years, it just floated around, moving with me in boxes. And when my wife and I found out we were pregnant with my daughter Lily, I had a 7-year-old stepdaughter, and my wife went to work one day and she charged us with moving some boxes to get ready in preparation for the baby. And so we found my box of magic from when I was a kid, and we sat on the floor and just played with it all day. And it relit this fire. So the next day I went to work and I dialed it up, Magic, Northern Colorado, on the internet, because we didn't have the internet when I was a kid doing magic. Right. And I found a magician in Fort Collins who has become my mentor and one of my absolute heroes, the great Ludini. And I called him and I said, hey, I want to get back into this. And we had lunch and we've struck up an amazing friendship through it. So he's kind of my everything I do. I run it past the great Ludini to get some ideas.
Yeah, and you make a good point about how hundreds of years ago, people went and saw a magician they would not know. I mean, you could still crave to figure out, well, how the heck did you get out of that tank? But now people can YouTube it. Oh man, I really want to know why that magician or how they did that, and so they'll search it. And I'm kind of guilty of this. I've actually tried to look up tricks that I just didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, I've had people in my audience do it. I've had people in my audience pull their phone up and say, is it this?
Right.
So,
and I feel like, man, how do we resist that? And how do we make ourselves comfortable with sitting in this stage of wonder and I don't know, and just embracing that and just enjoying that present feeling of suspense and awe, because we don't get that very often.
well, and I think my show's different than most magic shows. I'm not a ta-da magician. I start with a story about when I was in the 5th grade. I auditioned for my 5th grade talent show doing card tricks and telling jokes. Absolute true story. And it moves on to a story about an imaginary friend and then meeting my friend Lou. It's I think what my show does is it's storytelling. I did a show at the Moxie Theater a couple years ago, and one of the best reviews I had, a woman had posted on my Facebook page, I would have paid the price of admission just to hear those stories. And I think that's what adults want. They want relatable stories with some magic involved, you know, and everybody had an imaginary friend when they were a kid, or everybody knew somebody that had an imaginary friend. And I talk a lot about my imaginary friend Yehudi in my show. It's a great story, but I also talk about my kids, and I talk about, I do a little bit of ghosty kind of seance-y magic. And everybody has an interest in that because everybody has a little bit of a belief or a want to believe in ghosts and paranormal and that kind of stuff. So that's where I started, was when I doing this seriously as a paranormal magician, and I did seances and haunts and those kind of things, and I love doing those. But the show's kind of evolved into more kind of autobiographical stories and yeah.
Yeah, so you get this magic kit back out, and this fire is relit in you for magic. And then how do you transfer that magic kit with your daughter to seance magic, and delving into this side of us where it seems like anytime you sit around a campfire, eventually the question gets asked, do you believe in ghosts?
Right, absolutely. I joined a magic club, which for anybody that wants to begin in magic, I look for a local magic club. I don't think they're really great for performing magicians. I think they're kind of secret keepers. They just are people that collect secrets. As I mentioned earlier, I think they're the people that got those magic kits that were never allowed to appreciate magic. And and the magic clubs are great for people starting out, and I owe everything I have to being part of a magic club. I think it's moved on a little bit. So you go to those and you kind of learn what is routining and scripting, and it's not just. I don't believe people like to be tricked. I don't think people like to be tricked. I think they like to be entertained but not tricked. I think adults, when you do tricks for adults, it makes them feel dumb. So I read a really great book.
But people love magic.
I do. Yeah.
It's funny because I agree with you. They want to be tricked, but at the same time they don't. That's why I think that's why they look up the answer. But people still love to see.
Well,
magic.
that's one of the struggles I have, and I don't want to say talk. I kind of preach about this, and I'm a little bit obnoxious about it with other magicians. The difference between magic and tricks. There's a big difference.
How do you explain that to them?
Well, I'll show you. You want me to show you one?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, you're going to have to be the eyes and the ears for your audience here.
Oh, okay, so
let me.
Paul is pulling out.
I'm going to shuffle it up, and I'll hand it to you.
Here.
And it is a red deck of bicycle cards. Go ahead and shuffle them up.
Okay.
So there's no.
Right.
And then
I'm shuffling this deck of cards here.
Pick any card and put it face down on the table. But look at it and then put it face down on the table.
Okay, so I want to see it. Okay,
yeah.
So I'm going to pick a card here.
Yep. And look at it and just put it face down on the table right there.
Okay.
Okay, so your card is the 4 diamonds, right? So that's a trick, right? Was there any magic there? You picked a card and I named it, right?
Right.
Okay, now pick another card.
Okay.
And look at the card.
I do feel pretty tricked. Can I shuffle these?
Please.
Okay, I'm going to reshuffle.
Yep.
That was the 4 diamonds, by the way, and it was as soon as I set it down. See, I enjoy this part.
Okay. Now pick another one. Now keep the card that you're selecting, keep it in your hand. Put the rest of the cards down.
Okay.
I'll take these back.
All right, so I have this card in my hand.
And you know what it is.
Paul has not seen it.
And you know what it is.
No.
Okay, put your hands out like this.
Okay, do I set the card down?
Put your card in one of your hands.
Okay.
Okay. So now imagine, you know what the card looks like, right? You know what the card value is.
Yeah.
We're not going to say it yet, but imagine it floating up and turning over and looking here. Okay. So we have red cards and we have black cards, right? Say red and black. Say red and black.
Red and black.
Okay. Now, see, you said black a little louder than you said red. So it's a black card, right?
Maybe.
No, I think you're tricking me. It's a red card. It is a red card, correct?
Okay.
You can answer this question.
Yes.
Okay, it is a red card. Okay. So I see where this is going now. So now we have hearts and we have diamonds, right? Now I want you to say hearts and diamonds. Now that you know that I'm looking at what you're going to say it differently. You're going to try to throw me off. So say hearts and diamonds.
Hearts and diamonds.
Say them again. You can mix them around or say however you want.
That was good. That must have been a good one. I got you there. Maybe.
Okay, say it again.
Hearts and diamonds.
It's a diamond, right?
Maybe.
Okay, I'm going to say it's a diamond.
Okay.
And I believe it's I don't believe it's a number. You picked a number last time. I believe it's a face card.
Okay.
Am I right?
Maybe.
Okay.
Am I supposed to be honest?
You're
with
supposed
you?
to be, yes. Tell me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. Okay. So it's a face card, a diamond face card. Okay. Are you married?
No.
You picked the queen. Is that right? Is it the queen?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. So now my question is, which one of those, that was the exact
this
same.
This was the red queen of diamonds. Yes.
My reason for that was the exact same, as magicians call it, method. I used the exact same method on both of those. Which one was more magic?
The second one.
And why? As somebody who participated in both of them, why was that more magic to you?
I think I had a personal stake in it, and I felt like
You were trying to deceive me,
and
you
I
were
was
trying
involved,
to play along. Right.
I knew that, or I at least think that you were paying attention to some very subtle cues, and so I was trying to delete them, but I wasn't able to.
And so that's the example I give when I tell the difference between tricks and magic.
Okay.
You know, and then so when you come to a mystery collection show, one of my shows, I'm hoping that what you experience is magic, not a bunch of tricks. You'll never hear me say, and I've worked really hard at this, okay, my next trick is. My next trick is. And I did that for years. My next trick, this trick, this trick, this trick. But I want people, if I believe it's magic, my audience is going to believe it's magic. You know, we see magic every single day. And we like you said, the caterpillars and the you know, so that is my example of what is magic and what is a trick.
Right. And it's just learning that and then staying true to that and telling a story and weaving that through a however long experience you want people to have at your show.
Yeah. So that's I mean, I think everybody wants to believe in magic. I think everybody wants to believe in ghosts. So I turned it into kind of I've always loved horror movies. I've always loved scary stuff. Just kind of fell in love with that and then hooked up with some friends that do it. And we've kind of made this paranormal magic group.
Did you feel this was hard to cultivate this kind of chronological or the story-based style that you have? Do you feel like there are a lot of other people out there doing this?
There aren't a lot of other people out there doing it. There are a lot of trick magicians, which is great. It's great. But there's a lot of us. There's several of us. I'm a storyteller. I'm a talker. I love people. I love jokes. I love I open with jokes and I tell jokes the whole night, and it's just fun. I'm a talker and a storyteller, and to try to, one of the big things they teach you when you're learning magic in all the books is to develop a character. And I thought I could develop a character that wasn't me. And I was doing a show in South Carolina at a East Coast Spirit Sessions. It's a convention for ghost workers and seance workers. Okay. And I was the midnight Friday the 13th show. I was the last show on Friday the 13th.
This is the most epic booking possible.
Well, it's all magicians.
Yeah.
And the guy that opens for me, I'd never met him before. His name's Zeke Powers. He's from Atlanta, and he's a comedian magician, and he's hilarious. And I told a buddy of mine, my buddy James from New Orleans, I said, I can't do this. I can't follow that guy, because I had this character built up where it was scripted, and I was serious, and I was dark. And my buddy James looks at me and says, don't do it. Just go up there and be yourself. And I went up and started telling jokes, and I made fun of my life. I made fun of other magicians, and my character was born that night for my show, and it was just me. So it's my storytelling, my ability to tell a story and to tell a joke is just kind of, my character on stage is the same person I am at home and with my buddies.
So you get back into magic, and then what gives you the decision to jump off the ladder and say, I want to do this full time?
Well, I worked in finance for almost 20 years. I went to school to be a history professor. That was what I wanted to do. And then I took a semester off in grad school, and I decided I was going to get a real job. And I was going to work, because I'd gone to school straight. I'd never taken a summer off through college. And in grad school, I got a job at a bank that said no experience necessary. And that is exactly what I had. So I got the job. And almost 20 years later, I worked for a beef company, and I did international finance. And I woke up one morning and I just had a bad feeling. I just went to work, and I called my wife, and I said, sweetheart, I don't want to do this anymore. And she said, well, what's your plan? And I said, I think I want to try my hand at being a professional magician. And she said, well, that's a plan. And I took that as, that's an amazing plan. And I'm so lucky to have such a brave husband. So I did it. And I sat down and I called some friends that had done it. And I said, okay, I'm doing it. And right away, my friends were like, sweet, I want you to collaborate on this with me. I helped a friend that got on America's Got Talent, and he got through the first 2 rounds, and I was his consultant on that. He went to Penn & Teller Fool Us later and got through that. Now he's on the Queen Mary and doing a nightly show on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, and I've gotten to help him along the way and work with him. So I just dove in. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I would not recommend it to anybody, but I did it, and it's been very, very fun. My wife is a florist. And so she has figured a way to turn a passion into a job. And that's something that, this isn't a dress rehearsal for anything. Our life isn't a dress rehearsal. We have one shot. And when I'm long gone, my tombstone's not going to say he was really good at Excel spreadsheets or, man, he could balance a ledger book, But people will remember the stories I told and the jokes I told and the magic I helped. So I just jumped, plugged my nose and jumped.
Yeah. And now when you tell people that you're a magician, what is their typical response? Do they have this aura? Because I feel like when I meet a magician instantly, I'm like, oh, this is a different type of person.
Yeah. Well, we're all weirdos. Reason. I mean, we're all weirdos. We're all a bunch of weirdos.
But it's fun. It's like, oh, and I have to resist, because I'm sure what you get, and maybe you enjoy this, maybe you don't, is like, oh, let me see a trick.
Right.
And you're like, well, I don't do tricks.
Well,
so
So and here's a joke that we have amongst ourselves, magicians. When somebody says, well, you're a magician, so you know magic? Show me a trick. Well, I don't have my stuff with me. Well, are you magic or is it your stuff that's magic? Right? I mean, that's the kind of, so I'm trying to come up with a tagline that isn't magic, because when people come to my show and they think it's a magic show and they expect a magician, I did the same show at the that I told you about earlier at the Moxie, where a woman had written a comment saying I would have paid the same ticket price just to hear the stories. Mm-hmm. I had another magician think he was being helpful and send me an email and say, do you understand that in 90 minutes you only did 7 tricks? So, who am I performing for? Magicians or, people?
Yeah.
So
I think it would be interesting to see from your perspective what it's like to meet people who find out you're a magician, and the types of things that they ask you to do right off the bat.
Well, I'm trying to rebrand. I'm trying to come up with, and so what I've been calling my show is a night of intimate mysteries and illusion. And I think what that does, that tells you it just sounds a little bit more grown up, right? I mean, it just sounds a little bit more grown up than magic show.
Yeah. I'm making assumptions. I might not bring my 10-year-old child to that.
Right. And, often people say, well, what kind of magic do you do? And I'll tell them. I'll tell them. And rarely do I perform on command. But I do shows all the time. And so I'll invite people to shows, or I'll tell them. And there are some things that I carry with me most of the time if I get doing them. Or I'll say, hey, come over next time.
Are you more willing to do that for kids, do you think?
Actually, kids are hard.
Uh-oh.
Kids are hard. I try things out on my kids, and I have a 20-year-old stepdaughter and a 13-year-old or 12-year-old daughter. So I try things out on them, and my daughter Lily has taken a few of my routines, that are original routines of mine, and done them at her talent show at school, which is kind of fun to watch. But I don't really perform for kids. I have a couple really good friends that make their living performing for kids. So if I get an offer to do a kid show, I send them their way.
I see. So you really know who you are, and that's the area that you want to be in the most.
Yeah.
So you brought some other items.
I did.
Some possible magic.
As I mentioned earlier, and this is a story. This is one of my favorite stories I tell.
Let's get into this.
When I was a kid, I had an imaginary friend named Yehudi. And this is honest to God truth. This is.
How did you come up with the name Yehudi?
Well, we'll get there. I've done a lot of adult research on the name Yehudi and figured out a little bit about it. So I had this imaginary friend named Yehudi, and it was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And this would have been about 1979, 1980. And at the time I had a 2-year-old younger brother and a newborn sister. We're all about 18 months apart. Well, one afternoon, my Yehudi would help me do some amazingly terrible things. We often called the police. Yehudi taught me how to call 911 on the phone. And Yehudi showed me where the panic buttons on our alarm system were. And one afternoon, Yehudi and I took all the clothes out of my mom's dresser and put them in my dad's dresser, and put my dad's clothes in her dresser. We just were playing a prank, and we thought it was great. So Yehudi was kind of a troublemaker. Well, one afternoon we went grocery shopping. And Yehudi convinced me to get in the ice box, the big ice chest, big glass door ice chest.
Okay.
And so I climbed in and made a little throne and just sat there. Now, keep in mind, this is 1979, 1980. This is, stranger danger, kind of the beginnings of stranger danger. Well, my mom is terrified. I mean, she's lost her favorite of her 3 kids, and nobody can find them around find me around the store. Well, all of a sudden, a lady sees me, this little kid turning blue, waving at people as they walk by. And my mom comes, she's in tears. And my mom's been mad at me a lot in my life. And I think this may have been the most mad she's been. And I remember she put her finger in my face and she said, I've had it with Yehudi. He stays here. He does not come home with us today. They'd patronized me for a while, but they left. I had to keep him at the grocery store that day. And that was the last time I saw him my entire life. Fast forward 30 years, and I'm sitting in a cubicle making spreadsheets, and I'm listening to the Paranormal Podcast with Nick Redfern. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I'm not.
Nick Redfern is the guy from Ancient Aliens, the British guy from Ancient Aliens,
okay,
with the bald head. and he mentions Project Yehudi. And I was, oh my God, he knows. He knows. I had not heard this name in 25, 30 years. And so I call my wife, and my wife's like, oh, I'll get back to work. And I call my mom, and my mom's like, oh, I'll get back to work. And so I send Nick Redfern an email, and I told him my whole story. And he sends me back an email, and I said, I need to know more about Project Yehudi. And he said, send PayPal $25, and I'll send you my book. So I do, and he sends me the book. A couple weeks later, I know all about Project Yehudi. It was a real project in World War II in the Navy. And what they would do is they would send boats out with floaters. That they were just big balloons with mirrors and lights on them. And what it did is it looked like a boat to the kind of ancient, beginnings of radar and sonar. So the Axis powers would have their ships with their radars and looking for boats. Well, they'd see this big mass. Well, it was just a big floater. It was a big mirrors and lights and balloons, but it took up space, and so they believed that was a boat. So the Axis powers would turn all their attention over here, and then the good guys would sneak up behind them. So I do a little bit more research on this, and I decide a name that keeps popping up in naval intelligence in World War II is James Michener. Now, everybody in Colorado knows James Michener. He wrote the book on northern Colorado, and the library at UNC is named after
Michener
him.
Library.
So
right?
I go and I buy a copy of Michener's Centennial. Have you ever read this?
I have not.
Okay.
So we're looking at a book here.
This is, and it's over 1,000 pages. So I'm going to have you just stick your finger in the book and just break it to a right. Perfect. Right there.
Okay. So I stuck my finger in a random spot in the
book. And then
book.
go ahead and say out loud the page number.
430.
Page 430. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the first word on the page?
You.
Okay, perfect. So now take the book. Now the book's going to be in your hands. Now if you'll remember what Project Yehudi is, Project Yehudi was something is over here and you see it. It shows up on your radar and you see it. And then you blink for a second, it's not there. Go ahead and read the first sentence on that page on 430. Go ahead and open it up and out loud read the first sentence on that page.
Okay. Let's see. Finding 430 here. Okay, so page 429 and 430, which is the same piece of paper, is torn out.
And you saw page 430.
I thought I did.
Okay, well you read the first line, the first word, right?
Yeah.
So you saw it over here, but now it's
gone. It's right here. It is. It is inside this deck of cards that is saran wrapped with a sticker that's intact. Dang. And it's it's folded up nice and
Go ahead
neat.
and take it out of there and make sure that it matches up.
Okay.
And that should be page 430.
Okay, it is 430.
And
it starts with the word you.
Does it fit the ripped page?
Yes, all the sentences line up.
So that is a condensed version of my Project Yehudi. So that's something I'm very proud of. I love it because the story is absolutely true.
Dang. So you have no idea how this word Yehudi got into your mind.
So I look up Yehudi, and there's an old Cab Calloway song called "Who's Yehudi, the Man Who Wasn't There." And it's very anti-Semitic. It's a terribly anti-Semitic song. It's about a man that sneaks into your house and steals your silverware at night. And so I look more and more into it. And there's a podcast on the etymology of words, and Yehudi was on there one time, and it was about, they used to say Yehudi was the man that turned on the light in your refrigerator. Or when something would go missing, Yehudi must have done it. And so I'm guessing as a kid, somebody asked me, a grandparent or an older relative said, who did that? And I said, not me. And they said, it must have been Yehudi. And I thought, I can blame Yehudi on this. But the best part of the story, and this is, again, absolutely true. I mentioned earlier that I run everything past the great Ludini. Every routine I do, I run past him. He's kind of my guy. And when I was working on this routine, I had lunch with him, and I'm telling the story, and he keeps looking at me. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, he goes, who put you up to this? And I said, Lou, I don't know what you're saying. He goes, come on. Was it Meredith, his wife? And I said, Lou, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, all right, you're pulling a prank on me, right? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Yehudi is Lou's middle name. Really? It's a family name from an old Jewish tradition. It was his grandfather's name. And they got rid of it during World War II because it was such a kind of controversial name, and it was a real old Yiddish name. And so they wouldn't put it on his birth certificate, but that was his middle name. So this hit me when I was
serendipity.
I was doing this show at Cheyenne Comic-Con last October, and I had moved some things around in the show because I had a shorter amount of time, and I moved things around, and I've been telling these two stories about Lou being one of my mentors, my hero, and then this, and it just clicked in the middle of the show, And I look at my wife's, towards the back, and you can see in her eyes, oh, you're on it. This just clicked. And so it just dawned on me that maybe, Yehudi didn't leave that day at the grocery store. Maybe he just turned into a 75-year-old Jewish man in Fort Collins.
And found you again.
Found me again.
Said, hey, I got a coat for that icebox.
Right.
Wow.
So that's, this is all true. This is the kind of stuff that I look for in my life. This is, these are things that every day something happens in your life that's magic. And I have an eye for those. And I I'll go dig out a book from the 1920s with magic tricks, and I'll find something that can make it showable to other people.
Yeah. And I was self-aware because we're on the microphone and we had talked about not trying to figure it out. And even then I was sitting here like, how the hell did you do that?
Yep,
right? Because I'm sitting here like, that was amazing to me because I didn't know what you were going to do. And I just can't believe that the page was out and it's right there. And I want to know, and then at the same time I'm just stamping that out. And like I said, for listeners, I'm really trying to just sit in the moment of like, what a great story and what a neat experience.
Well, my wife, the shows that she comes to, inevitably after the show, somebody will corner her and say, okay, do you know how he does it? And she has the best line. She says, yes, but knowing how to do it and being able to do it are two different things. We all know how Eric Clapton plays the guitar. We know how he does it,
but you can't.
But we're not all playing Eric Clapton guitar.
Yeah.
So I've worked really hard on these things. I've worked really hard on them, and I do offer. Tomorrow I'm doing it. I know this is. Tomorrow I'm doing Magic Camp here at Tower 56.
Oh, nice.
Saturday I'm doing Magic Camp. I'm going to do that a couple times a year. I perform a lot in New Orleans. I have a pretty good following and a really good venue that I get to perform in New Orleans. I just got back. I did 3 shows there 2 weeks ago. And then I was there in November. I did shows in November as well. And I did a Magic for Bartenders class for a bar.
That would be a good skill.
And then I did a Magic Camp last February for probably about a dozen people. And just everybody ought to know magic. I mean, everybody ought to know something to share some wonder and some magic with people.
Yeah, let's be kids again.
Yeah.
I feel like people walk around and say that phrase, but people rarely live it or seek out ways to be kids. So.
The first time I did a class, we called it Uncle Magic. Because, everybody has an uncle that pulls a coin out from your ear. But then we decided that, when moms wanted to do it or kids wanted to do it. So the class is more towards adults. But we've got a good handful of people signed up for Saturday.
Right. So listeners on the show, if they're here in northern Colorado, how do they find you? If they're curious about future events? It's
themysterycollection.com. The best way to get updated schedules is find The Mystery Collection on Facebook.
Okay, so The Mystery Collection either on Facebook or themysterycollection.com.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today, and I really enjoy your perspective on magic, and I think this is going to inspire me for the rest of my life. When I see magic done, I'm going to try not to think about how it was done and just enjoy the moment.
I've got friends that want to know how it's done, and actually that's the magic to them. I've got friends that want to know method, not because they want to perform or they want to ruin it, but because they just think that's magic as well.
They enjoy it. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
If you enjoy The More You Know Co., please check out our other episodes. We've had such a variety of interesting and awesome people, you never know what you're going to find. I've been in awe and wonder going on this journey around northern Colorado. Read the episode descriptions, take a shot, and discover our NoCo community. Trevor Fossey, always putting in the time to edit and mix these episodes. Thank you so much for your dedication and hard work. Russell Isaac Long, our guest on episode 67 of the show, makes all our music here at The More You Know Co. Thank you, good sir. We are on Facebook and Instagram if you're interested in staying connected with us, or just to see bonus visual content in addition to this very audio-driven podcast experience. We will be back soon with another conversation, exploring and connecting the people who make up Northern Colorado. Until next time, peace!